Lori K. Soares Hacking was born on December 31st, 1976. Her biological mother was only 13 years old at the time, and she made the difficult decision to give Lori up for adoption. Fortunately, 4 months later, Lori found her forever family with Thelma and Eraldo Soares, a loving couple from California. They had been eagerly waiting to bring home a sibling for their adopted son, Paul, who was 7 years old at the time. Lori was truly a blessing to them, and they considered her their angel baby. Thelma and Eraldo, who were Mormon missionaries, raised Lori and Paul in a home filled with love, devotion to their religion, and strong family values. Thelma even took the initiative to learn Portuguese so that she could teach her children about their father's Brazilian heritage. However, in 1987, Thelma and Eraldo decided to divorce after growing apart over the years. At that time, Lori was just 10 years old. Eraldo stayed in California with Paul, who was graduating from high school and preparing for his own missionary work. On the other hand, Lori and Thelma moved to Orem, Utah, in search of a fresh start. Initially, it was challenging for Lori to adjust to the new environment as she was very close to her father. However, with time, she began to heal and find her place in Orem. She excelled academically, and her friends and family regarded her as a kind-hearted and outgoing young lady. Lori had a unique ability to understand and connect with those around her. Despite working part-time, she managed to maintain her academic excellence throughout her educational journey. Lori was a determined individual who had clear goals for her life. One of her aspirations was to meet her Prince Charming and build a family of her own. Little did she know that her own fairy tale would unfold during a school camping trip in 1994. It was during this trip to Lake Powell that Lori crossed paths with Mark Hacking. Mark was known for his playful nature and often engaged in pranks with his friends. Without hesitation, he casually tossed a smoldering log back into the fire, unknowingly scorching his own hands. Fortunately, Lori, a kind-hearted individual, rushed to his aid and skillfully treated his burns before expertly bandaging them. From that moment on, their destinies intertwined. Under the enchanting night sky and the fading embers of the campfire, Mark and Lori's love story commenced as they engaged in deep conversations that stretched into the late hours. Soon enough, Lori confided in her mother about Mark, and from then on, she never entertained the thought of another man in the same way. Sharing the same Mormon faith, Mark was on the verge of embarking on his missionary work in 1996 at the tender age of 20. Despite the distance, the couple nurtured their affectionate relationship as Mark ventured off to Winnipeg, Canada, to fulfill his duties. However, Mark's return was earlier than anticipated due to his involvement in a scandal caused by one of his roommates breaking missionary rules. Throughout this challenging period, Lori stood steadfastly by his side, and upon his return, they seamlessly resumed their journey together. Meanwhile, Lori pursued her education at Webster State University before transferring to the University of Utah, where she majored in business. During this time, Mark found solace in assisting with various odd jobs within the neighborhood. Tragically, fate took an unfortunate turn when Mark suffered a series of injuries, including a concussion, seizure, and a broken back after falling off a roof. This incident served as a catalyst for strengthening the bond between Lori and Mark, as she lovingly cared for him during his recovery, completing the circle of their relationship. With their hearts set on a shared future, they began meticulously planning their lives together. Mark enrolled at the University of Utah to pursue his undergraduate degree, with aspirations of eventually pursuing a career in medicine. Meanwhile, Lori and Mark prepared to take a significant leap forward in their relationship. On August 7, 1999, they exchanged vows in a temple ceremony in Utah. Later that year, in December, Lori graduated with the highest honors, summa cum laude, earning a bachelor's degree in management. Simultaneously, Mark took on the role of a supervisor in an apartment complex where the couple resided after their marriage, all while continuing his full-time studies. In this manner, they were able to reside in the apartment without paying rent as long as they fulfilled their management responsibilities. Their bond grew even stronger after they tied the knot. Their loved ones often described them as a deeply affectionate couple who collaborated seamlessly. While they pursued their individual aspirations, they remained actively involved in their church and community. Mark shared his love for running with Lori, and they frequently went jogging together when not occupied with work or church obligations. Lori secured a position as a stockbroker's assistant at Wells Fargo, and Mark found employment as an orderly at a nearby psychiatric hospital while completing his studies. Over time, Mark strived to achieve his goal of gaining admission to medical school by interviewing at various universities, including the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Upon graduation, his diligence paid off, and he was admitted to the medical program at the University of North Carolina. Finally, their aspirations were coming to fruition, and they could now begin the family they had always desired. However, Lori had to resign from her job to relocate to North Carolina so that Mark could pursue his studies. Consequently, in July 2004, she tendered her resignation, and the young couple commenced preparations to move from Utah to North Carolina. It was during this period that a radiant Lori revealed some thrilling news. She was 5 weeks pregnant with their first child. After a decade-long relationship, their idyllic life together was on the verge of completion. They were on the brink of embarking on the most significant journey of their lives. On July 19, 2004, Mark awoke to an empty bed. Assuming Lori had gone for a run before heading to work, he contacted her office around 10 a.m., only to learn she had not arrived. Following a conversation with her colleague, he was directed to her supervisor, who advised him to contact the authorities and report her disappearance. Mark contacted the authorities to report Lori missing, but was advised to wait for 24 hours before filing a report. Undeterred, he decided to search for her at Memory Grove Park, a popular spot for runners due to its numerous trails. Throughout his search, Mark remained in contact with his family, informing them of Lori's sudden disappearance. Concerned friends and relatives gathered at the park to assist in the search for the pregnant woman. Reports indicate that an overwhelming number of people, exceeding 1,000, joined the effort to comb the area. Many were convinced that she had been abducted. Family members, church members, and community volunteers tirelessly searched far and wide, but unfortunately, their efforts yielded no results. Eventually, Mark reached out to the police again, this time sounding frantic. Finally, the authorities joined the volunteers, deploying K-9 units and helicopters to conduct an extensive search of the park. Although Lori's car was found near the park entrance, she was nowhere to be found. Both the Hacking and Soares families organized a press conference to draw attention to Lori's disappearance. Mark, visibly distraught, pleaded for any information regarding Lori and her safe return. While the family sought assistance from the media, the police began focusing on individuals close to Lori, hoping to uncover new leads. As is customary in cases involving a missing spouse, the husband becomes the primary person of interest in the investigation. Mark underwent an interview with Salt Lake City Police Department Detective Kelly Kent. During the interview, Mark provided details about his marriage to Lori, portraying a picture-perfect relationship. He recounted the events leading up to his wife's disappearance, explaining that they were planning to relocate for his medical career. When Detective Kent delved deeper into the matter, Mark revealed his intention to specialize in oncology, the study and treatment of tumors. However, when asked to spell oncology, Mark struggled to do so. It caused surprise, but it did not imply that he was a murderer. Investigators continued to interview individuals close to the couple. The accounts they received seemed to align with what Mark had previously stated, that the couple was happily married and ready for a new chapter in their lives. Despite their differences, both Lori and Mark managed to make their contrasting qualities complement their relationship. Lori's colleagues also confirmed that the couple shared a sweet and intimate bond. Meanwhile, investigators conducted a thorough search of Lori's car. The first thing that caught their attention was the positioning of the car seat and rearview mirrors, which seemed more suitable for someone larger than Lori. It appeared as if someone of Mark's height had driven the car last. Additionally, they discovered a receipt for a new mattress and bedding purchased on July 19, 2004, at 10:23 a.m. from a nearby sleep and bedding store. The investigators interviewed the shop owners and learned that Mark had been shopping around the same time he reported Lori missing to the police. Mark was interviewed again, but continued to deny any knowledge of Lori's disappearance. He reiterated his previous account of events during the initial interview with the police. When questioned about the mattress, Mark explained that Lori had an accident and they had disposed of the old mattress a week prior. He stated that they were currently using the old box spring for sleeping. While it seemed plausible that he had purchased a new mattress for their upcoming move, the timing appeared suspicious once again. Mark was released as all the evidence was purely circumstantial. In the early hours of July 20th, 2004, around 2 a.m., the police received a call from a Salt Lake City motel regarding a man who was seen running naked and screaming outside the establishment. When the police arrived, they found Mark running around without clothes, except for his sandals. Based on the information provided, it was reported that Mark visited the motel earlier, where he engaged in heavy drinking and later consumed barbiturates. Subsequently, he removed his clothes and ran around the parking lot in the nude. Instead of arresting Mark, authorities contacted his family, and his brother, Scott, arrived to take him home. A peculiar note was discovered on Mark's Palm Pilot by his brother, which stated, "To everyone from Mark, this is justice. I'm so sorry." Law enforcement didn't believe Mark was mentally unstable. They speculated that he was aware of the impending consequences and attempted to feign insanity as a last resort. Notably, the fact that he retained his sandals was a significant indicator, as noted by renowned Federal Bureau of Investigation profiler Candice DeLong, who remarked, "He kept his shoes on, his sandals. That's not generally something we see in someone psychotic." Mark's family eventually admitted him to the psychiatric ward at the university for evaluation. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered Mark's dual life. Born on April 24, 1976, to Dr. Douglas Hacking and Nurse Janet, Mark was the fifth child among 7 siblings. Known for his mischievous nature, Mark often put himself in risky situations for the sake of humor. His father and brothers were esteemed professionals in the medical field, making it all the more surprising that Mark was not enrolled in the medical program at the University of North Carolina. Furthermore, it was revealed that Mark had not completed his undergraduate studies at the University of Utah, having failed in 2002 and deceiving others about his academic achievements. With the media equally invested in the investigation, even more revelations about Mark's past would come to light. Reports indicated that Mark had engaged in activities that were not in line with the principles of a true Mormon. There were allegations that Mark had played a central role in the scandal that caused him to return early from his missionary work in 1996. These activities included smoking, drinking alcohol, and engaging in intimate relationships with some of the girls he had recruited into the faith. It was evident that Mark had strayed far from the values he was raised with, and the investigators were about to uncover just how far. After obtaining a search warrant, investigators began to search the couple's shared apartment. Detective Kent noticed several inconsistencies in the apartment. Lori's purse, wallet, and car keys were found inside, even though the car had been discovered at the park. Lori's wedding ring was hidden away in her jewelry box, and the bathtub appeared to have been recently cleaned with the scent of bleach lingering in the air. Detective Kent also observed a large bouquet of flowers, which she suspected had been purchased to reconcile after a disagreement between the couple. This theory seemed to be confirmed when investigators discovered a letter addressed to Mark from Lori in the second bedroom. In the letter, she expressed her contemplation of leaving him, feeling that she had been married to a different version of him. The note read, "I want to grow old with you, but I cannot continue under these circumstances. Coming home to our apartment is painful for me. I cannot envision a life with you unless changes are made." Further examination of the apartment revealed the presence of a new mattress, and the bed sheets appeared to be freshly unpacked and arranged rather than having been slept in. Moreover, a hunting knife containing hair and fibers was discovered concealed in a drawer of the bedside table. Notably, the handle of the knife bore a fingerprint and a small bloodstain. In addition, investigators meticulously examined Mark's SUV and detected a bloodstain on the back seat, along with handprints near the back door. These findings were consistent with someone bracing themselves while loading a heavy object into the vehicle. Both the knife and the bloodstain from the car's back seat were sent for testing. As a result, the nature of the crime began to resemble a homicide. However, the police chose to remain discreet about their suspicions, keeping their cards close to their chests. Instead, they focused on constructing a timeline leading up to Lori's disappearance. Valuable information was obtained from the University of Utah Psychiatric Ward, where it was reported that an individual had disposed of a large item in their dumpsters. Although searches were conducted in and around the area, the dumpsters had already been emptied before the investigation for Lori commenced. Recognizing that Mark had been utilizing dumpsters to discard potential evidence, law enforcement officers scoured the vicinity behind the church attended by Mark and Lori. It was there that they stumbled upon an old mattress, although its top cover had been torn off. This discovery contradicted the timeline provided by Mark, as the mattress should have been removed if it had been discarded a week earlier. Subsequently, Lori's colleagues from Wells Fargo were contacted. They informed investigators that when Mark had called on Monday, it seemed peculiar that he was unaware of Lori's whereabouts. Furthermore, they disclosed an intriguing detail. Lori had made several calls regarding financial aid from the university, during which she appeared visibly distressed and left the office in tears. However, when the couple attended a farewell party hosted by their friends later that evening, Lori seemed to be in good spirits. Detectives then reviewed surveillance footage from a convenience store, which confirmed that Lori and Mark had been shopping together on Sunday evening, the day prior to her disappearance. The store clerk corroborated this information. He informed investigators that he was acquainted with Mark due to his frequent visits to purchase cigarettes. He recollected having a conversation with Mark, during which Mark discreetly signaled him not to disclose his smoking habit to Lori when her attention was diverted. Holloman added that Mark appeared content, while Lori seemed despondent. However, at approximately 1:30 a.m., Mark returned to the convenience store unaccompanied. This raised suspicions among the police, as they pondered whether he had already committed the crime or was contemplating doing so. Nevertheless, the police received new information at this point. The blood discovered on the knife and in the car matched Lori's. Despite the absence of a body, there was still insufficient evidence for a case. However, an unexpected twist awaited them in this peculiar narrative. A week after Lori was reported missing, the volunteer search was called off by officials following the receipt of new information. Their focus shifted to the municipal landfills, where specialized teams would conduct the search. This information was kept confidential until Mark's release from the psychiatric ward. While undergoing treatment for his emotional breakdown, Mark sought the assistance of defense attorney G. Gilbert Athay. On August 2, 2004, Mark was apprehended on suspicion of the aggravated murder of his wife, Lori. The public soon became aware that Mark Hacking was now the primary suspect in Lori Hacking's murder. Mark's father, Douglas, confirmed this in a statement provided to the media. He explained that on July 24, 2004, Scott and Lance visited Mark while he was receiving treatment for his emotional turmoil. They confronted him about Lori, and he eventually broke down and confessed to everything. Mark claimed that Lori had been investigating student housing and financial aid offered by the University of North Carolina when she discovered his web of lies. This occurred on July 16, 2004, the same day her colleagues reported that she appeared upset and left work. When Lori confronted him, he concocted yet another story, suggesting that a computer glitch may have been responsible for his application not reaching their offices on time. Lori took the initiative to inform the university about the issue and requested a callback to resolve any concerns. Unfortunately, it was the weekend, and she had to wait until Monday to receive a response. However, when Monday arrived, she was shocked to discover that Mark had completely fabricated his entire life. Mark tried to explain that the incident had caused some strain, but they managed to overcome their problems somehow. Nevertheless, Lori's letter confronting him about his actions deeply offended Mark, leaving him feeling further insulted. In a fit of anger, he retrieved his .22 caliber rifle, leaving a note in the spare room before entering the master bedroom and tragically shooting Lori in the head. Afterward, he wrapped her body in garbage bags and carpet, placing her in the back seat of his SUV. He then disposed of all evidence by tearing off the top cover of the mattress and stuffing it into more garbage bags. Mark secured the torn mattress to the roof of his SUV and placed all the evidence, along with Lori's lifeless body, in the back seat. He disposed of Lori's body in garbage bags at the university and got rid of the mattress at the church. Mark explained to his brothers that all these actions were an attempt to cover up the crime. Douglas believed that Mark had experienced a psychological breakdown due to the pressure he felt from their family's reputation and standing within the community when Lori discovered his deception. On August 9, 2004, Mark was charged with first-degree murder. After a month of extensive searching in landfills, Sergeant J.R. Nelson of the Salt Lake City Police Department discovered hair and part of Lori's jawbone on October 1, 2004. Eventually, the majority of her remains were found and sent to the coroner's office for examination. The medical examiners were able to identify her through dental records despite the advanced state of decomposition. The inability of examiners to determine the exact cause of Lori's death or her pregnancy status prevented them from charging him with the death of the unborn child. The discovery of Lori's body, however, strengthened the case against Mark, according to Salt Lake Deputy District Attorney Bob Stott. He mentioned that this development allowed them to establish that a murder had indeed occurred. Stott also highlighted the relief felt by Lori's family, as they now knew that Lori's final resting place would not be in a landfill. Mark initially pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder charges on October 29, 2004, despite pleas from Lori's brother to spare the family further grief by admitting guilt. However, he later changed his plea to guilty on April 15, 2005, in exchange for the dropping of additional charges. Mark was sentenced to 6 years to life in prison under Utah law, with an additional year added to his minimum term due to the use of a firearm in Lori's death. The decision by the Utah Board of Parole to delay Mark's parole consideration until 2035, requiring a minimum of 30 years served, was met with approval by Thelma Soares, Lori's mother. She had initially felt that the 6-year minimum sentence was inadequate, but the change renewed her faith in the justice system. Lori's family decided to replace her married name on her tombstone with the Portuguese word Filhinha, meaning little daughter. The passage of Utah House Bill 102, also known as Lori's Law, on March 20, 2006, increased the minimum sentence for those convicted of first-degree murder to 15 years before parole consideration. On June 6, 2005, Mark's father, Douglas, issued a final statement to the press addressing the murder and providing clarification on the events leading to the confession and conviction. Mark's acknowledgement of his actions and his aspiration to become the man Lori always desired him to be were encapsulated in a quote that marked the end of the story. In June 2006, Utah prison authorities stumbled upon Mark's illicit activities of selling personal belongings, including autographs and hand tracings, on an online platform named Murder Auction. Following his apprehension, Mark willingly ceased his online sales. Undoubtedly, the most disturbing facet of this case lies in the fact that the woman who was loved and trusted by her husband ultimately fell victim to his heinous act of murder. Brian Michael Barrett, born on February 1, 1984 in Williamsville, New York, had a reserved and introverted nature during his upbringing. However, those who knew him recognized his amiable and gentle demeanor. From a young age, Brian developed a deep passion for sports, which he avidly pursued. He would diligently read the sports section of the newspaper to stay updated on his favorite team's statistics. Brian's love for sports was shared with his father and brothers, fostering a strong bond among them. In high school, he actively participated in both baseball and football until a shoulder injury forced him to step away from the field. In 2002, Brian successfully graduated from Star Point High School in Pendleton, a rural town near the Canadian border, where he resided with his family. Following his high school education, he decided to pursue a 2-year degree at Erie Community College. To support his college expenses, Brian took on a part-time job at Dynabraid Corporation in Clarence. After completing his degree, he aspired to become an industrial arts teacher and enrolled at Buffalo State College, conveniently located near his home. Despite his academic pursuits, Brian continued to work diligently at the factory, earning a reputation as a dedicated employee. At the age of 22, in 2006, Brian began to break out of his shell and embrace a more adventurous side. He engaged in activities such as fishing, camping, skydiving, and exploring new experiences. However, his online interactions would ultimately lead him down an unforeseen path. On Friday, September 17, 2006, after finishing his shift at the Dynabraid power tool plant at 10 p.m., Brian prepared to head home. Tragically, before he could start his truck, he was shot at close range with a .30 caliber rifle, an event that would forever alter the course of his life. The driver's side window shattered as 3 bullets tore through it, instantly claiming his life. It took 2 days for his body to be discovered, slumped in the front seat of his pickup truck, hidden away in a remote corner of the company parking lot. The police wasted no time in launching their investigation, and soon they uncovered a potential suspect in the murder. It seemed that Brian's co-workers had been whispering about his complicated online love triangle and the bitter rivalry he had with a fellow employee. Determined to unravel the truth, the investigators delved into his online activities, unearthing a shocking tale of jealousy and betrayal that culminated in a tragic ending. The story began with Thomas Montgomery, a 46-year-old man from Cheektowaga, leading an ordinary life with his wife Cindy and their 2 daughters. Unlike Brian, Thomas's existence was far from exciting. Day after day, he would rise early in the morning and head to the Dynabraid Corporation, where he worked as a machinist. Donning his goggles, he would spend the entire day operating his machine, manufacturing components for power tools until the late afternoon. After work, he would take his daughters to the local swimming club and walk their family dog, Shadow. Thomas played the role of a devoted father and husband, but deep down, he yearned for something more. Tired of the monotony that consumed his life, the 46-year-old with his reddish mustache, protruding belly, and receding hairline decided to assume a new identity. In May of 2005, he ventured into a teen chat room on Pogo.com, masquerading as a young and attractive Marine about to be deployed to Iraq. Under the screen name Marine Sniper, Thomas Montgomery embarked on a journey that would ultimately lead to tragedy. Shortly after, an 18-year-old girl using the screen name Tall Hot Blonde initiated a conversation with him, prompting him to pretend he was also 18. Following a series of friendly exchanges, the girl revealed her true identity as Jessie, a high school senior from West Virginia who played softball. She shared photos with Montgomery that matched her online persona. In return, Montgomery introduced himself as Tommy. Tommy, who was the same height as the 46-year-old man at 6 feet 2 inches, had distinct features such as thick red hair, broad shoulders, and muscular build, along with a handsome face. He disclosed that he was a black belt in karate and had bullet scars on his left shoulder and right leg, showcasing his toughness. Montgomery shared a picture of himself in uniform, taken 3 decades ago during his brief military service, and spun an intricate tale about his background. Under the guise of Tommy, he recounted a story of losing his mother to cancer at a young age, with his father serving in the military. After enduring a challenging upbringing, he enlisted in the Marines, underwent sniper training in June, and was preparing for deployment to Iraq. Despite Marine records indicating that he never trained as a sniper or saw combat, Jesse was captivated by the narrative. What began as a platonic friendship quickly escalated into a virtual romance, with Jesse continuing to send intimate photos to Montgomery under the assumption that he was 18. As their bond deepened, they engaged in cyber intimacy, blurring the lines between reality and the digital realm. The emotional connection between Jesse and Tommy blossomed, leading to the exchange of gifts, phone calls, and affectionate letters. At one point, Jesse even mailed a pair of red underwear as a token of her affection. Despite recognizing the seriousness of their relationship, Montgomery found himself unable to break away, convinced that they would never meet in person. Montgomery later expressed his regret, stating, "If I had been smarter, I would have ended it. However, it became an addiction that I needed every day." Over time, Jesse and Tommy established a routine of phone conversations between 6:30 and 6:40 a.m. and from 3:30 to 3:40 p.m., during which Jesse believed Tommy was off duty from his military duties. After 8 months of online interaction, Tommy proposed to Jesse during Christmas, and she accepted, despite never having met in person. Tommy's fantasy extended beyond the computer screen, as he began sharing his imagined life with this 18-year-old girl with his colleagues at work. He even told them that he planned to leave his wife and relocate to West Virginia, and he was completely serious. In a note to himself on January 2nd, 2006, he wrote, "Tom Montgomery, 46 years old, ceases to exist and is replaced by an 18-year-old battle-scarred Marine. He's moving to West Virginia to be with the love of his life." As Montgomery's grip on reality seemed to slip away, his lies unraveled when his wife, Cindy, discovered the truth. One day in February 2006, Jesse messaged Montgomery while his daughter happened to be using the computer. Startled by their conversation, the daughter informed her mother. Cindy had already grown suspicious of his excessive online activity and his diminishing presence in their lives, and now everything fell into place. She also stumbled upon a collection of love letters, photos, and keepsakes from Jesse, including a pair of red panties. To warn Jesse, Cindy sent her a photograph of her family along with a letter. "Allow me to introduce you to these individuals," she wrote. "The man in the center is Tom, my husband since 1989. He is 46 years old." She further advised Jesse, "Do not place your trust in words on a computer. Let this go. You will only be hurt by a man who has mastered the art of manipulation and deceit." With complete transparency, she also addressed her husband with a letter. "I find it hard to believe that you are living in some sort of strange fantasy. If you wish to part ways, we can do so, but continuing to deceive me and the children while she sends you gifts in the mail is not acceptable." Shocked and devastated by this disclosure, Jesse immediately ended the relationship, labeling Montgomery as a dishonest person. She expressed her hatred towards him and suggested that he should be imprisoned for his deceitful behavior. However, deep down, Jesse struggled to come to terms with the situation. To verify the truth, Jesse contacted one of Montgomery's colleagues, Barrett, known online as Beefcake. Brian confirmed Cindy's account to Jesse. Whether out of a desire for revenge or sheer disgust, Jesse found solace in Brian. Before long, Jesse and Brian developed their own online romance. They even made their relationship public. As their bond grew stronger, she shared with Brian the same images she had previously sent to Montgomery. Their blossoming relationship became a topic of discussion on internet forums, but it didn't end there. Brian boasted about his new love interest at work and exposed Montgomery's disturbing actions to his colleagues. Both Jesse and Brian took to the internet to ensure that everyone knew about Montgomery's deceitful behavior, painting him as a predator. Montgomery was enraged. In just a few days, his life crumbled before his eyes. He went from being a respected member of the community to an outcast. Jesse's involvement with Brian fueled his jealousy, especially when she praised Brian. "He's truthful, unlike you," Jesse told Montgomery. "He's closer to my age," she said. Despite her anger, Jessie couldn't completely sever ties with Montgomery. After some time, she began messaging him again. "I long to be with Tommy," Jessie confessed. "If he were real, I would still be holding him every night and sharing dreams with him." She also admitted to Montgomery that she had only been with Brian as a way to get back at him. Montgomery's stroke of luck seemed like winning the lottery. Despite his age of 47, he was accepted and had the woman he had always desired. However, their rekindled relationship was short-lived. Behind Montgomery's back, Jessie appeared to be reconnecting with Brian. Consumed by an intense obsession, anger, and jealousy, Montgomery began spiraling downwards. His messages to Jessie were filled with abuse and threats, reflecting his deteriorating mental state. In one instance, he menacingly warned Jessie, "Brian will pay in blood." Despite these threats, Jessie continued to oscillate between the two men, leading to an inevitable disastrous outcome. The final blow came when Brian and Jessie decided to meet, an opportunity that eluded Montgomery. Brian planned to drive down to North Carolina and requested Jessie to meet him as he would be passing near her house. Although Jessie initially agreed, she canceled at the last minute. Unbeknownst to Montgomery, he burned with uncontrollable rage, unaware of the cancellation. The discovery of this extensive evidence left investigators confident that they had found their suspect. Furthermore, Montgomery's own words to a colleague, stating that he would not be foolish enough to leave behind shell casings if he were to commit a murder, further incriminated him in Brian's death. 2 weeks prior to the murder, Montgomery had inquired about Brian's work schedule from the same colleague. With both motive and opportunity established, authorities arrived at Montgomery's residence. Concerned that he may be on the run and a potential threat to Jessie, Buffalo authorities contacted the local police in West Virginia to check on her. However, when the West Virginia Police Department arrived at Jessie's home, she was not present. Instead, her mother, Mary Sheeler, opened the door. The officers were in for yet another surprise when they realized that Mary remained calm and unaffected even after being informed of the situation. The information she revealed left them in disbelief. As the layers of deception unraveled, it sent a shiver down the detectives' spines. Under pressure, Mary finally broke down and confessed that it was she who had been posing as her own daughter, Jessie. She had taken on her daughter's identity, even using her email address to enter a teen chat room on Pogo. Shockingly, she had also sent inappropriate pictures to strangers without her daughter's knowledge or consent. The real Jessie had no idea about her mother's disturbing fantasies or the fact that her compromising photos were circulating online. It was truly tragic to think that the only person telling the truth about his identity would ultimately lose his life. On November 27, 2006, Montgomery was arrested for the murder of Brian Barrett. He claimed to have been at a local restaurant and returned home between 10 and 10:10 p.m. before the murder occurred. However, his wife's testimony contradicted his alibi, stating that he arrived home more than 30 minutes later. Mobile records placed Montgomery near the scene of the crime at the time of the murder. When questioned, Montgomery explained that he had gone to retrieve his lunch from his car as the peaches would have spoiled otherwise. A peach pit found next to Brian's truck later revealed Montgomery's DNA. Additionally, a leather cartridge case covered in dog hairs, suspected to belong to Shadow, was discovered in the same area. The police also found a photo of Montgomery's gun cabinet, which showed a missing .30 caliber rifle that was later linked to the murder. Montgomery was completely unaware of the condom found in his Marriott hotel room during questioning. The color drained from his face when he realized that he had thrown his life away for a lie. Prosecutors in Buffalo attempted to charge Mary Schuyler with various offenses, but it was determined that she had crossed moral and ethical boundaries rather than legal ones. In September 2006, Montgomery pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter in the death of 22-year-old Brian Barrett. In November 2007, a verdict was reached, sentencing him to a lengthy 20-year imprisonment. Numerous petitions were diligently submitted by Brian's family, urging for the implementation of a law in New York that would render Mary's actions unlawful in the future. Regrettably, all their efforts proved futile. Barrett fell victim to a deceitful individual who assumed a false identity, fixated on another individual who misrepresented herself. It is truly disheartening to accept that the reckless exploitation of social media by two mature individuals ultimately led to the untimely demise of an innocent young man merely embarking on the journey of his life.